I stood in the grow house and looked skeptically at the bed of strange white mushrooms that Tobias was so excited about. Tobias, you can't be serious. Tobias looked down at the bed, his face falling a little as his excitement drained. What? Don't you think they're interesting? The mushrooms were a little bit interesting. They looked like the white mushrooms my mom would often mix in with her spaghetti when I was a kid. The difference between these mushrooms and the one that she bought from Walmart was that those didn't usually have caps that looked like skulls. Each of the 8 mushrooms, the fungi about the size of a croquet ball, had the perfect impression of a skull on them. Each one looked like one of those sugar skulls you sometimes saw at celebrations in Mexico, and each one was moving ever so slightly as we watched them. "Oh, they're something," I told him, "but I just don't think the crowds are going to pack in for your weird mushrooms." "Well, they're also highly poisonous," he said, making me pull my finger back as I reached down to poke one. "They could kill a person in a matter of hours, eat right through their stomach. Pretty neat, huh?" "Yeah, Tobias, but we need something with drawing power. It's snowing its guts out right now," I said, indicating the park outside the grow house. "We need a pine forest, or some kind of fir tree with a face on it, or, I don't know, something that's going to pique people's interest." "Well," Tobias said, throwing up his hands, "this is the best I can do. I'm not as skilled at this as the lady is, despite my best efforts. I'm sorry, Samuel, but I'm no goddess." I started to flash at him, but I shook it off. This wasn't Tobias's fault. He was trying. We were all trying, but it just seemed hopeless. We couldn't run this place without her. However Professor Thurston had done it before I was turned, we couldn't make it work. Thurston had barely been making it work, it would seem, and the sensational new exhibits put forth by the lady were keeping us going by sheer excitement. Without her, we were lost on so many levels that the basement was all we had left these days. "I'm sorry, Tobias. You're doing your best. I just want the lady to have somewhere to come back to, and keeping this place afloat is proving harder than it should be. We need money coming in to keep the lights on, or we may go dark here pretty shortly." I was probably being a bit dramatic, but the truth was that we were about 3 months away from being broke. We had made a lot of money while the park was open. Our last few events had been very good for tourism in Cashmere, but it takes money to run a park, even when you aren't paying your staff. Food costs, power bills, resurfacing the parking lot, defenses for the coming winter, and brandy-low do drink when they make merry. We'd spent a little too freely, it would seem, and now the clock was ticking. He put a hand on my shoulder, and I was glad for the support. "We've all been on edge lately, Sam. It happens when the lady's away." That was putting it lightly. I'd broken up 5 fights just the week before, and twice as many verbal altercations. The Brandy-Low were as a rule a jolly bunch. We fought hard against those who opposed us, but the family that we had here was extremely tight-knit, and they generally stuck close together. This was our family. We were all we had now that we were part of this world, and it made us very protective of each other. Lately, however, the ones who had stayed were all possessed of an extremely short fuse. These were Brandy-Low who had been especially friendly, best friends even, and some of them joined the disappearances afterwards. That was always the hardest part. I would wake up and there were just less of us. There had never been a lot of Brandy-Low, less than 100 at any given time, but these disappearances were stretching us even thinner than usual. We were down to 30 Brandy-Low, over half of them having vanished, and If the Green Man decided to swoop in and finish the job, there wouldn't be anything we could do about it. I'm going to go check the mail, see if there's any letters from Uncle Travelin' Matt, I said. Tobias scrunched his eyes up in the same way he had the last few times I had made that joke. I still don't really get it. It's a character from I spent a few seconds deciding whether I wanted to try to explain Fraggle Rock to a creature that had been around since alchemy was widely accepted, and decided against it. A TV program I used to watch when I was a kid. Let me see if he sent me something, and I'll let you know what it says. I headed out into the park, walking past a few apathetic brandylow. They should be tending exhibits, on guard detail, or arranging new things for our guests to see, but they just listed around like lost ships. I felt a little like a lost vessel myself these days, cast adrift and unable to find a purpose. I knew what I should be doing and what my purpose was, but I couldn't make any of it make sense. What was I doing? Just going through the motions, protecting a place that no one wanted, maintaining something that might be gone by spring. My feet headed for the front gate, as steadfast as ever, and as I walked past the guard booth, I heard the soft refrains of a snorer. Looking in, I wasn't surprised to see Bobby Lee asleep. Bobby Lee was pretty lazy as a rule, and I hadn't wanted him on my security detail. I also hadn't had much of a choice. Like I said, numbers were down, and the decent ones had been the first to go. What we were left with were the lazy ones, the scatterbrained ones, the unreliable brandylow that would run if it came to a fight. I kicked the side of the booth, and Bobby Lee came awake with a snort. You'll be the Green Man's best friend if he comes along. You'll sleep through the battle, too, I suppose. I was just resting my eyes, Bobby Lee complained. Well, by all means, don't let me keep you from your nap, then, I said, trying to keep the bite out of my voice and failing. Bobby Lee grumbled as I walked off, but I was pretty sure he was asleep before I got to the mailbox. My hooves crunched in the snow as I walked across the empty parking lot. It was really coming down out here, and it hadn't let up in the past week. It was piling up, despite the city and their snowplows, and I wouldn't have been surprised if the box was empty. It wasn't, though, and I opened it to find 3 pieces of mail: a power bill, a catalog for farming equipment, and a letter from my old pal, Travelin' Randy. This one was postmarked from northern Mississippi, quite a jaunt from the last time he had written. I carried the mail back to the park, unsurprised to find Bobby Lee asleep again, and slid my nail across the seal to break it. The letter inside was not particularly long, but Randy wasn't a long-winded man. He was prone to short letters that got to the point very quickly. Randy wrote well, but I do wish that he had spent a little more time on details and backgrounds. None of us had any idea where he was, and most of the time neither did he. The letter was less than a page long, and it didn't look like it held anything about finding the lady, but I wanted to read it anyway. Dear Sam, greetings from the great state of Mississippi. It's cold here, but I believe it might be colder where you are. There's snow on the ground, but that's okay. I've never minded sleeping rough. If the cold bothers the barker, he doesn't show it, but the gordling doesn't seem to like it much. I've taken to carrying him. Poor little thing shakes like a leaf. He's been leading us towards Arkansas for the last couple of days. To where, I don't know, but he's been heading there unerringly. We had a close call the other night, and still makes me afraid to travel at night. We were traveling when that whistling suddenly came back. I didn't recognize it at first, but the barker told us we needed to get up high. He said the whistler would probably miss us if we got up high, so we all climbed up, me carrying that little pumpkin somehow, and spent the night up a tree. I couldn't really see him, it was pretty dark down there, but I could hear him. He came crunching through the brush, whistling that terrible tune, and we stayed up in the branches till morning. He doesn't seem to care much for the sun, and he left off whistling as he went, as the sun peeked over the horizon. We're back on the road again, and I'll drop this letter off when we come to the next town. I hope things are well at the park, and I hope all of you are safe. Randy. I folded the letter up and headed back to the shop to wake up Bobby Lee. I told him to go make himself useful somewhere else and took his watch for a while. Sometimes a good long turn at watch is just what you need to have a good think. If he was heading for Arkansas, then maybe the Green Man was in one of those mountain ranges in the area. Arkansas was pretty rural and pretty big, too. It wouldn't be outside the realm of possibility to find him there. I hoped so. I also hoped that Randy wouldn't run afoul of the Green Man's minions and just disappear one day. The fact that he had one in his company already was something I tried not to dwell on. Tobias came out as the sun started setting, and after reading over the letter, he came to the same conclusion. There was a time when she was missing that we searched around a big range in that area. There was a tug, a spark, that we couldn't ignore, but then it moved suddenly, and we lost it for about a decade. The next tug we got was when we found her in the park. He's keeping us from locating her somehow, but it appears he may not be able to stop the Gordling. He went back to the grow house, having had another idea, and as I sat here and watched the snow come down, I wondered how many more ideas this place had in it before we closed the gates forever.
You're still here. Thanks for stopping by. Dr. Plague here. Always a pleasure to see all my new and old viewers coming by for another one of my spooky tales. If you'd like to support the show, you can always take part in one of our channel offers through Fume or Aura, or you can just click on another video when they come up. I'd really appreciate it. For our newer viewers, we also have lots of playlists and other things if you'd like to get caught up. I know some of my series have been going on for quite a while. If you'd like to get my latest book, there's a link down below that'll take you to my Amazon page. Towesey Homestead just came out, so if that's something you'd like to get your hands on, go ahead and have a look down there. If you'd like a signed copy, you can go ahead and email me from my email address on the site, and I'll get with you about shipping information and ship you a signed copy. If you'd like to support the channel in a more monetary fashion, we also have membership through YouTube, and we've got a Patreon that you can get the information for in the description. We have lots of tiers and everything to suit your needs. Patrons that support on the $10 tier, that's our Ghostly Reader tier, get a book anytime I write one, signed and on their doorstep. As you may have noticed, there's a list of patrons and members on the screen, and I'd like to personally thank every one of them for taking a hand in the future of this channel. Well, that's enough for tonight. Dr. Plague, signing off. Have a wonderful evening.